Hello everyone, welcome to our NParks OneMillionTrees Webinar. Thank you all for joining us on Zoom and YouTube. I'm Wansin and I'll be hosting this morning's session. Today, we'll be joining our NParks Arborist, who will be shedding more light on how NParks manages and cares for our trees. It has been more than 1 year since we started the 1 Million Trees movement, and we would like to thank all those who have been part of it. We have planted 223,000 of the 1 million trees we aim to plant. Beyond the planting of trees, the 1 Million Trees movement also comprises of online activities such as virtual tours and webinars like this for everyone to learn more from the comfort of your home. So do check out our website, TreesSG, and follow us on our NParks social media channels for updates. My colleague will be sharing the relevant links in the Zoom chat. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our speakers. We have with us Arthur, Jarel, and Abigail, our colleagues from the Streetscape Division. I'll leave it to Arthur later on to tell us more about what we have in store for us today. After the sharing, we will also have a short question and answer session. So if you have any questions along the way, do send them to Rachel as a private message using the Zoom chat, and we'll try to answer some of these during the Q&A. I'm sure we're looking forward to hearing more from our speakers. So Arthur, over to you.
Thank you, Wansin, and hi, and a very good morning to all. I'm Arthur, and I'm an arborist in the Streetscape Division under NParks. And thank you for joining us, and we hope that from today's talk, you will be able to find out a bit more about what we do in our work. So if I can break down the webinar into 3 segments. For the first part, I'll be sharing a little bit about how NParks has evolved over the last 50 to 60 years, and also how we have gone about caring for our trees. In the second segment, Jarel will share a bit about how what he does as an arborist on a daily basis. He'll cover some interesting aspects of tree inspection and also some of the tools that we use in our work. And for the last segment, Abigail will share about some of the resources that we have, and one of which is a website called TreesSG. She'll also cover a bit on the 1 Million Trees movement that is ongoing right now. So we do hope that you enjoy this webinar. Okay, so let's go back to the early 1960s, and this is even before Singapore gained independence in 1965. Here in this photo, we can see our late former Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, kicking off the first nationwide tree planting event in 1963. And this really started the greening movement in Singapore. Back then, the idea was to transform Singapore into a garden city, so the aim was to quickly green up the island. Over the next 50 years, the idea has evolved, and in 2011, it has become a city in the garden, where we adopted biophilic designs to restore our habitats. There was also active engagement of the communities to work with us to sustain our greening efforts. As we move towards present day, Singapore is moving towards a city in nature, where the key focus here really is to further restore nature into our urban landscape. So how did this city in nature came about? In response to the challenges of climate change, the government announced the Singapore Green Plan 2030 earlier this year. And city nature is one of the 5 key pillars under this plan, where NParks will play an important role in realizing some of the ambitious targets on greenery. So the idea in city nature is about infusing more greenery into our environment and building up our carbon sink by extending nature throughout our island. Some initiatives include like planting 1 million more trees and also having every household within a 10-minute walk from a park by 2030. We also aim to add more new parks and also enhancing the current areas of existing parks with more large vegetation and natural landscapes by end 2026. In addition, we are also continually expanding our park connector network. And with this expansion, it further strengthens the connectivity between our green spaces. So all in all, we aim to add 1,000 hectares of green spaces by 2035. And as we journey together towards a city in nature, it will enable communities to forge closer bonds through active stewardship of the environment. And we hope that through this, we will be able to achieve not only climate, but also ecological and social resilience for the future. So this is a drone shot taken somewhere along Evans Road, and it overlooks the MOE campus. And even though we can see the concrete buildings, but what really stands out in between is that beautiful lush greenery that makes this place so livable and so enjoyable. And if we can pause and think and appreciate the work that our predecessors have put in over the last 50 years, it is surely not taken for granted. I would like to say that we're truly standing on the shoulders of giants, and the task at hand for the current and future generation is really to maintain and keep up the good work that our predecessors have put in. So this is a question for the viewers. Make a guess. How many trees do you think we have in Singapore right now? Just an estimate, have a think about it. And I know that I won't get a live answer, so I'll just share with you. To date, we have about 7 million trees in Singapore. And with that many trees, there's definitely a need to maintain and manage them. Or if I can rephrase it, there's a need to have a tree management program. But where do we learn about managing trees? How do we get that branch of knowledge? Is it considered a science or discipline? And if it can be classified as a discipline, the term would be called arboriculture. So what is arboriculture? It is considered a science, and some say it is an art. By definition, arboriculture means it's that study, research, cultivation, and management of trees. And professionals who practice arboriculture are called arborists. Arborist is a term from the US and is more commonly known as the term that's used in the UK, which is arboriculturist. So with arboriculture, we have tree management, and under tree management, we'll learn things like tree inspection, tree pruning, fertilization, tree transplanting, and many more. So how does one become an arborist? I'm sure most of you are quite interested to find out. Do note that this is, I'm sharing from the perspective of a new staff that is joining NParks or has joined NParks. So if we start right at the top left, what we have is called the on-the-job training program. It is run within NParks and is led by some of our more experienced arborists. And in fact, one of the OJT trainers is Jarel. So yeah, you can ask him more about it if you want. So during the course, participants will learn about basic tree inspection, what to look out for and how to mitigate them. And then after that, they'll be brought to some areas like parks where they can practice and polish their tree inspection skills. But of course, the learning process does not stop there. Along the way, as the staff journeys along, progresses along his career, he'll get to pick up more knowledge and skills and through his daily work, and also sometimes through interacting with some of his more senior colleagues to gain some more knowledge and experience. And about maybe 2 to 3 years into the job, staff will have the opportunity to be enrolled in this course called the ISA Certified Arborist Program, CA for short, and ISA stands for International Society of Arboriculture. It is an organization based in the US, so this course is from there. It is a very comprehensive course. It covers a wide range of topics, such as learning about basic tree biology, how to identify tree defects, pests, diseases, and also some techniques on tree climbing. At the end of the course, you're required to take an exam, and once you pass it, you'll be qualified as a certified arborist by the ISA. And as we move towards the bottom, this is an optional course actually. It is the ISA Tree Risk Assessment Qualification, or TRAQ for short. So this course offers tree care professionals the opportunity to further expand their knowledge on learning about the fundamentals of tree risk assessment. Because with this course, we'll learn a standardized and systematic way of assessing tree risk. And this helps because as an arborist, with that information, I'm able to guide tree owners or stakeholders to make better decisions in learning how to manage their trees better. Similar to the CA course, it has an exam at the end, and once you pass it, you'll be certified by the ISA as TRAQ qualified. Do take note that these certificates, they do not last forever, so they have an expiry date. And for the CA license, it's 3 years, while for the TRAQ license, it's 5 years. To maintain and have that eligibility to be recertified or to renew a license, you have to get a minimum number of points during when your license is active. And how do we get that? We get it by attending more courses, more seminars, or sometimes conducting lessons related to arboriculture. I guess it's good in a sense because as an arborist, as I attend more courses, I get to keep up with the current trends of arboriculture, and it also helps me to refresh my knowledge and my skills. I did not put it in this slide, but actually the highest level of certification from the ISA is the Master Arborist program. So once an individual achieves being a Master Arborist, it means that it just demonstrates that that individual has shown a thorough knowledge and immense dedication to arboriculture and its practices. So here's an example of the Certified Arborist certificate. We can see it right at the bottom. It shows the issue and expiration date. Tells you how long your license is valid. And also what is unique is that you will have a license ID tag to you. And this example is the TRAQ certificate. And if you notice that the only difference is that it does not have a unique license ID. So because this once you get this certificate, it is tagged to your certified arborist license ID. So I hope that you can get a sense that to take the TRAQ program, you have to be a certified arborist first. Okay, so let's touch a little bit about tree inspections, which is actually a very important component under tree management. So why do we do tree inspections? Essentially, if I can break it down, it's about assessing, managing, and mitigating the risk that trees have. Yes, I know it sounds a bit scary that trees have risks, but they do, and it's something that we know and we have to accept. Similarly, if we look at the objects that surround our everyday lives, everything has a risk. Even the chair that you're sitting on listening to this webinar has a risk of falling under your own weight, or the car that you're driving has a risk of breaking down when it's running. But how do we lower the risk of these things happening to these objects? They have to be checked and certified by professionals in their respective industries. And this goes the same for trees. With trees, as an arborist, my job is to check, assess, and certify that these trees have a lower risk of incidents happening over a period of time. But do we inspect every tree? Not necessarily. It is mainly driven by two factors, actually. So the first factor is the location of the tree, or where the tree is located. Secondly, it's the frequency of a target that is occurring under the tree. So let me break it down, the words frequency and target for you. So when we talk about frequency, it's really how often a target occurs under the tree or is going under the tree. And when we talk about targets, it refers to things like buildings, vehicles, and cars, and humans. So let's take a look at the examples of these photos. On the left, this is a photo of East Coast Parkway. And on any given day, it is a busy expressway with many cars running on it. And we can see that there are trees lining up beside the expressway. So like I've mentioned earlier, we've identified where the trees are located. So they're beside a busy expressway, and the targets are cars that on any given day are occurring frequently there. So that is why there's a need to inspect these trees over there. And then on the right is also an example. This photo is from Sembawang Park, a very popular park among park users. And we can see that there are trees lining along the footpath. And then on the footpath, it's frequented by park users on a regular basis. So that is why there is also a need to inspect the trees over there along the footpath at Sembawang Park. So enough of the why, let's talk about how do we inspect trees. In NParks, there are two levels, the first level and the second level, or they can also be called the basic and the advanced level. For the first level, it's purely visual, observation of what the tree is showing on the outside. And when we see it, we record it down. And if there's any action that needs to be taken, we'll follow up shortly. How do we go from the first level to the second level? So usually during the level, when we see something that's suspicious, that is really out of the norm, that is occurring to a tree, we'll be curious to find out what is happening inside the tree without cutting it down. So to sorry about that technical issue. So if I can continue. So with that second level, that is when we can deploy our advanced tools to check the internal condition of the tree and to give us a better analysis from there. If I can give an analogy about the first level and second level, it's like when you're feeling sick and you go and see the GP. During your first visit to the GP will check whether, is there any serious symptoms, and if not, based on observation, he'll give you some medicine, and then you'll go back home to rest. But if during the check and the GP finds out that there is something serious going on that requires a more detailed check, he will refer you to a specialist in the hospital. And that is when you go to the specialist in the hospital, where they will have tools, advanced tools, to diagnose your issue. So that's the analogy I would like to give when I want to compare it with the first level inspection and second level inspection that we do in NParks. Jarel will share a bit more. He will elaborate a bit more details about this in his segment. Okay, so here are some of the tech tools that we use in our work. Let's start from the top left. So this is an electronic tablet for our digital inspection form. So when we go up to inspect a tree, whatever that we see is recorded digitally. And then once we save the form, it gets synced live to our database. If you ask some of my more senior colleagues how they do tree inspections last time, they'll tell you that before they go out on site, they have to print a stack of inspection forms. And for every tree, they have to record it manually with a pencil. And then after that, probably about half a day of tree inspection, they'll come back to the office where they'll have this huge stack of inspection forms and they'll key in one by one manually on the database. So in a way, times have changed. We have gone digital and it's more efficient. The only thing that we have to watch out for is that we have to make sure that the tablet is charged fully whenever we go out to do our inspection. Okay, so let's talk about the middle one, the top middle. This machine is called the Resistograph drilling machine. Basically, the machine is to detect the resistance in the internal wood condition of a tree. So in theory is that if the wood is healthy, it's solid, the resistance is high. But if there's something going on with the wood, whereby it's damaged or there's some decay occurring inside, the resistance will be low. Okay, then let's move to the top left, top right. This machine is called the PICUS sonic tomography machine. So what it does is that it is able okay, let me repeat myself. So what it does is that it uses sound waves. It's able to capture sound waves when it is artificially introduced by us. And then once it captures the sound waves and measure the speed of the sound, it is able to generate a picture or a tomogram of the internal condition of the tree. And that is from there, we can have a better assessment. For the resistograph and the PICUS, Jarel also elaborate a bit more in detail in this segment. Then let's go down to the bottom left. This is your standard drone. A drone is useful when we want to do a very quick assessment of something that's going on right at the top of the tree, something that we can't see from the ground. So that's when we deploy them. And then the last one, the bottom right, is the rangefinder. So what this machine does is to accurately measure the height of a tree. It is useful because sometimes trees are really so tall that you really just can't estimate the height. Okay, this is something new. If I can recall correctly, about 2 to 3 years ago, it was shared in the media that NParks is experimenting an electronic tilt sensor. So right now we're in the pilot phase and we are installing a number of tilt sensors on some of our mature trees throughout the island. So the purpose of this tilt sensor is to capture and analyze tree movement, especially during bad weather. But more importantly, it is also to inform us if there's a sudden tree movement so that we can quickly go down to see whether there's really something going on. So let me encourage the public. If you see something that's like that on a tree, please don't touch it. You can take a look at it and take photos, yeah, but just don't touch it because it is really sensitive. And if you touch it, what happens? It will capture false data. And worse, it will give a false alarm to the poor officer in charge and he or she will have to rush down to check whether there's anything going on with the tree. So yeah, just don't touch it, but admire it. Okay, so here's my cue to pass on to Jarel, where he'll share a bit more about what he does as an arborist on a daily basis. Thank you for listening to my segment. Jarel, please.
Yep, thank you, Arthur. Good morning to all. I am Jarel, an arborist at NParks, and I will be sharing with you what a day in my life is like, and also going into details about tree inspection. So first, I will start off with a quote from one of the pioneers in arboriculture that has inspired me greatly. His name is Alex Scheigel. He says that trees has to be touched to be understood. It is important for us to be physically close to trees and to touch them, to have a clearer understanding as well as to know what is going on with them. So, is it?
Yeah, it's my face.
Oh, the spotlight never changed. Okay, so not many people know what an arborist is or does. Basically, we are like doctors for trees. While patients visit their doctors, we visit our trees as trees don't have legs to walk to us for consultation. There are many types of doctors. We have GPs and specialists. Similarly, we have arborists that do visual tree inspection. VTA for short, just like a GP does your annual basic health check. This is also known as the NParks first level inspection, based on Claus Mattheck, another pioneer in arboriculture. A VTA is a visual diagnosis of the symptoms of defects, as well as the tree's vitality. At an annual health check, doctors will use tools to examine your vitals. So as arborists, we also have tools to measure and analyze the vitals of the trees using a variety of skills and tools. We will identify defects, if any, and examine them thoroughly.
Your cam is not on. Your cam is not on.
Why?
Your camera is not on.
It's on here. Sorry, just let me sort out some technical defect. The camera not working. Okay, so for a general rule of thumb for tree inspection is to be systematic, whereby we start from assessing the general condition of the tree from the top down. Why do we not do it from bottom up? This is because we must always make sure that there are no hazards on top of us in the branches before we go closer to the tree. This would prevent us from getting exposed to any of these hazards if there is any. So we start off our normal day by checking on our equipment we use on a daily basis. Here are some of the examples of the simple tools we carry along for our routine VTA. For example, the measuring tape is to measure the circumference of the tree, which is otherwise known as the girth. While for us humans, growing sideways is usually not ideal. For tree doctors, we love watching our trees grow in girth, as this indicates healthy growth. This measurement allows us to keep track of the growth and the progress of the tree. The screwdriver is used as a probe, and that will be used for inspecting cracks or cavities that are detected during our inspection. I will now show you some of the defects we look out for during VTA. Of course, these are just some of the common ones, and not all defects are shown on the slides. When we see some of these defects, we know that it is going to be a long day of work. First, we take a look at dead branches. You can see from the picture that there is a particular branch with a significantly lighter color compared to the rest. This difference in color shows that the bark of the branch has peeled off, and this is how we tell that the branch is dead. When we see such branches, we will remove them by pruning them away. Next, we take a look at cracks. What is a crack? A crack is a major indicator of an unstable tree. Most of these cracks are caused by improper closure of wounds or by the splitting of weak unions. These cracks can be found from the branches to the stems as well as to the roots, and they can be of different variety and severity. So we get quite concerned when we see open cavities. These cavities usually arise from prior injuries to the tree, such as a branch tearing off the stem, which will expose the sapwood, resulting in decay and causing the cavity. Thankfully, open cavities are easily seen and identified through our inspection regime. Any cavities that compromise a tree's structural integrity will be attended swiftly when identified. Next, we can see here some fruiting bodies. So what are fruiting bodies? They're actually the reproductive organs
of fungus, just like the mushrooms you see in the market. But what you see on our trees are most likely not the same, and it might even be poisonous. So please do not try to harvest them or bring them back to eat. Anyway, back to why this is a defect that we usually look out for. Presence of such fruiting bodies suggests that there is a presence of fungus within the tree, and there might be something happening which requires further assessment. So after going through the routine VTA, trees with significant defects are singled out and subjected to an advanced inspection or second level inspection. This is much like your GP referring you to your specialist for further examination. While your GP may use an X-ray or MRI to determine the extent of your ailments, we as arborists also deploy specialized tools to determine the extent of the defects within the tree, which can't be seen from the outside. I'll share with you about them shortly. These readings and results from our tools will then be presented in a detailed report on the target tree, and the report will determine how to mitigate the risk associated with the defects. So in second level inspection, specialized tools are used to allow us to see further into the internal structure of the tree. The first specialized tool we use is known as the resistograph. This equipment uses a drilling resistance measurement system, whereby a small drilling needle with a flat head is penetrated through the wood at a constant speed. The machine will then measure the amount of resistance acting on the needle going through the wood. So here is an example of when we were doing our first level inspection and we detected a cavity. And when we deployed the resistograph to investigate how extensive the cavity is, this is the drill profile as shown on the resistograph. Due to extensive decay on the cavity, the tree was subsequently removed and a cross-section of the tree is obtained to compare to the resistograph reading. Here we can see on the drill readings, there is a drop in resistance in the middle, which corresponds to the decay or cavity as shown in the cross-section of the wood. This is another example of a cross-section of the wood with a resistograph reading. As you can see, there is a sudden drop of resistance in the middle, which corresponds to the crack as shown on the wood section. So this resistograph allows us to determine the amount of sound wood at a particular level, which can't be seen visually from the surface. The next specialized tool that we use during our second level inspection is the PICUS sonic tomography. So how does this PICUS work? It is a device that measures the time taken for sound to travel from one point to another within the wood. So we start off by placing nails around the circumference of the tree and attach sensors to these nails to receive the sound. Then we use a specialized hammer to tap on these nails, transmitting the sound for the sensors to measure the time taken. And the system will automatically generate a tomogram when all measurements are completed. Just a fun fact, the PICUS is actually the name of a woodpecker species. So the way it works is actually like a woodpecker knocking on the wood. So here is an example of a tomogram. Here's a tree with fruiting bodies at the base of the trunk. Remember, I was talking about it earlier? That prompted us to take a further look at the base of the tree. As you can see from the tomogram, there are different colors shown. What do you think the colors represent? The dark brown actually represent where the wood is completely sound or intact. The green and the purple parts are where there is incipient decay, where decay is just starting off, and the blue parts represent a cavity. You can see from the picture how the tomogram corresponds to the cross section of the tree after removal. Here is another example of the tomogram. with the cross section that was done on it after removing the tree. As you can see, the cavities corresponds to the blue area, but they are not completely on a 1:1 ratio. So there is a chance that the PICUS will over or underestimate by a small margin, and this is the limitation of the PICUS. So having been out and about on a daily basis, we do see some unusual sights that I would like to share. This is actually a tree that has been freshly struck by lightning. As you can see, a branch has been completely torn off, and there is a very significant tear wound on the tree. How a lightning strike actually causes the branch to explode is actually because of the water content in the sapwood being superheated, and it turned into water vapor, causing them to expand suddenly. This sudden expansion will cause the sapwood to expand and explode. Thankfully, this is not actually a common occurrence in Singapore, because most of our tall trees are actually protected by lightning protection system, where there are lightning rods installed on them and grounded onto the ground. Prevention is always better than cure. So next, here you can see like the tree actually crossing across a canal or drain. Trees are amazing living creatures, living beings, and in my line of work, I come across many of such interesting sights. They are actually crossing over to reach out for more nutrients and water. So, and the next one you can see a yearpot tree actually located at Fort Canning, which has actually uprooted or fell over some time back, but continued to grow. These trees just show how resilient they are and their incredible adaptability. And that is why we need to do our job to inspect, maintain, and care for them so that all of us can appreciate them. With that, I hope you enjoyed my segment, and I'd like to hand over to Abigail to tell you more about trees.sg. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jarel and Arthur, for the very inspiring sharing. I'm sure now that you've gotten a glimpse of what an arborist at NParks does, many of you who have joined us this morning are curious to know how you can try out your hand out at being an arborist as well. So before we begin this section, let me introduce myself. My name is Abigail. I'm also from the Streetscape Division in NParks. So today I'll be sharing with you about Trees.sg, which is a platform where you can find additional resources to learn about tree care and management in Singapore. And it's also a platform where you can sign up to participate in our 1 million trees planting events. For those of you who have joined us over at Zoom, can I just get a show of hands? How many of you have heard of Trees.sg or have used the platform before? You can use the reaction button at the bottom of your screen to give me a thumbs up. Okay, I can see more people. Okay, that's good. Yeah, more people have raised their hands. Okay, so good that some of you are familiar, but for those that have not heard of Trees.sg before, it is actually a publicly accessible interactive map where you can view on your laptop or mobile browser, and contains the information on all the 6 million trees that are managed by NParks. Just like how each of us are given a birth certificate when we are born, each tree that are planted by NParks are plotted in our system and has a unique tree identification number. So this means that all our trees are carefully accounted for, and it helps us to schedule our routine tree inspection and pruning schedules. On top of that, there are also plenty of additional reading resources that you can find on the website, which I will be briefly bringing you through today. So please feel free to navigate along with me, and I'll give you some time for you to copy down the URL over here, or scan the QR code on the screen so that you can follow along. Yeah. Okay, so once the website loads, you can click on the top right-hand corner of the browser under the Learn tab. For those that are using the mobile browser version, you can find the 3 tabs on the top right-hand screen portion of your screen. So this will bring you to the introductory page where you can learn more about what a tree is, the life cycle of a tree, etc., before exploring more through the other 5 tabs. On the first tab called Know Our Trees, you can read up about the commonly planted trees along our roadsides and parks, complete with photographs for you to identify them. If you still want more information, you can click on the Learn More button, which will bring you to our Flora and Fauna web. This is a comprehensive database for all the plant and animal species in Singapore, and it is also managed by NParks. Other of the sections include the benefit of trees, urban tree care, tree conservation, and also more resources such as recommended readings and a list of registered contractors if you wish to landscape your own homes. I will leave you to explore the website at your own pace while we get to the main function of Trees SG. Going back to the home page of the Trees SG website, you can see a button that says Search or Plot a Tree in the middle of the website. And once you click on it, it will lead you to an interactive map showing you an overview of all the trees that are managed by NParks. To navigate the map and zoom into a particular tree or area, you can utilize the search function at the top of your screen, and it allows you to search by the categories that are listed. So for example, if you want to find out about the trees along Bedok Road, you can click on the location and type the address on your search bar, and all the trees along this road will appear as green dots on the map. So a fun fact is that the size of the dots actually correspond to the size of the tree. So for example, bigger dots will represent the more mature trees, whereas the smaller dots represent either newly planted saplings or small trees. And clicking on the individual dots will lead you to the specific tree and give you information that is specific to this tree, such as the estimated age, the girth size, the height, and when it's scheduled for its next haircut. You can even interact with the tree by uploading flowering pictures if you observe it blooming by clicking on this button. So for example, this is a Tabebuia rosea that is observed to be in full bloom. And you also can leave it a hug either virtually or physically, or leaving it a tree meal to just tell it how much you appreciate it. Alternatively, you can also do a search by species. For example, here you can search for angsana, and all the angsana trees in Singapore will be shown on the map. You can either type the common name or the scientific name, and it will pop up as an auto-suggestion as you type. A new search feature that we have recently added would be a search by name. So this allows you to search for trees that are plotted by members of public like yourself. This is usually done during tree planting events, but you can actually still use it to plot a tree that is at your backyard or a tree that your family has grown. And I will demonstrate to you how you can use this function later on. So the tree icons appear as a red dot with a white tree in the middle, which distinguishes the trees that are planted by NParks, which is the green dot that you saw earlier on. You can also search by your email or by text. So all these are customizable when you plot a tree, which makes it easier for you to find the tree that you've plotted to your children or grandchildren years down the road. So now I will run you through the process of plotting your very own tree on the Trees SG website. And actually this can be done on both laptop and mobile browsers. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I will be using the mobile version, which enables you to locate yourself using the location services. So the first step is to click on the Search and Plot a Tree button, which will bring you to the map again. And when you click on the Locate Me button at the bottom left hand of the screen, it will zoom you into wherever you are currently sitting or standing. And once it brings you to the correct location, you can click on the Plot a Tree button and confirm the location that is correct. After this, a pop-up will prompt you to input the information of the tree that you are plotting, such as the common name, scientific name, and the height, which you can omit if you are unsure of. Once you submit the form, the tree will be successfully reflected on the map as a red dot with the white tree in the middle. And you can do a search back on this tree by searching for the information that you've keyed in, for example, your name, your email, or the text that you have created. So now for the more exciting part, after everything that you've learned today from my colleagues Arthur and Jarel, I'm sure you must be wondering how you can contribute back to the greening efforts in Singapore. So by now you should have heard of the 1 Million Trees movement, which is a campaign to plant up an additional 1 million trees in Singapore by 2030. And we are getting you to be involved in our lineup of tree planting events that are occurring throughout the year. Since the launch of this movement last year, we have already planted 200,000 trees, which far exceeds our expectations, thanks to the enthusiastic response from the public. So to find out more about the movement and participate in our planting events, you can click on the 1 Million Trees Movement button at the top right-hand corner of your screen and find the updated list of the upcoming activities. Do note that the events get filled up pretty quickly, so it's best if you sign up for our mailing list to be kept informed of our latest events, which gets published on a weekly basis. However, due to the current Phase 2 heightened alert restrictions, our planting events have been put on hold until further notice. But in the meantime, you can still check out an array of informative videos that our team at NParks Bus have worked hard to curate under the Video Resources tab, such as teaching you how to plant a tree according to our best practices, as well as past 1 Million Tree webinars that you might have missed out. So with that, we've come to the end of the sharing session, and I'll now pass the time back to Wan Xin. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur, Jarel, and Abigail, for the very illuminative sharing. I've really enjoyed learning more about the behind the scenes of what Arborist does, as well as what tree care maintenance entails. And I'm sure that your curiosity has been piqued. So let's move on to question and answer. Thank you to everyone in the audience who has submitted their questions. We may not have time to cover everything because we've had quite an overwhelming response. So let's quickly move on to let our speakers answer your questions. The first question is, what inspired you to become Arborist? Do any one of our speakers want to take this question? Maybe Jarel?
Yeah, I'll start. So yeah, actually, I've always been a fan of nature and outdoors. So before I joined NParks, I actually didn't know what an arborist really does. Only after joining, I realized that actually arborists play an important role in Singapore because of the amount of trees we have. And also, many of my overseas friends are always full of praises for like our landscape. Like the first site they see on their cab rides out of Changi Airport is East Coast Park Expressway, where there is a nice row of rain trees with interlocking canopy. And it is a rare sight that is not often seen in an urban city. So hearing this from other people actually inspired me to be an arborist so that I can help maintain the trees and landscape that actually we should all be proud of. Yeah.
Thank you, Jarel. Okay, the next question is, what are the prerequisites of becoming an arborist? Do they need to be able to climb trees? Maybe Arthur, you would like to take this question?
Yeah, sure, I'll take this one. Okay, so when we talk about the prerequisites of becoming an arborist, I've shared earlier about the certificates that you need to get. Yeah, that's one of it. So that's the, I would say, the paper knowledge that you need. But in terms of experience, it will be good that you have started out in the landscape industry. So if I'm not mistaken, one of the prerequisites to join the Certified Arborist program is to have at least about 3 to 4 years of having horticulture experience or working in the landscape industry or anything that's related. Yeah, so that's probably one of the best ways if you want to become an arborist. Do they need to be able to climb trees? Yes, that's a very good question. Okay, I would say that it's a plus point that if you know how to climb trees, but it is also considered, I wouldn't consider it a must. So I mean, if we look at the public trees along the road, even when we want to inspect anything that's right up in the canopy, what we usually do is we use a crane and then we get up on the bucket, a small little like a place where you can stand inside and then you go up there. But eventually along the way, as you pursue this career as an arborist, you will also develop an interest in climbing trees. So that's maybe what I'm getting at. Yeah. So is there a need? Not necessary, but I think eventually you will also want to learn how to climb trees.
Okay, next question. What happens after a heavy downpour? Do arborists head out to check if trees have been affected by the rain?
Okay, I think I'll take this question again. Okay, so what happens? Yes, definitely, arborists, we do head out to check if the trees have been affected by rain, but actually we kind of prepare for it also. So since 2012, NParks has already further strengthened the tree management program. So what we do is that in the event when we prepare for a heavy monsoon period, so Singapore has 2 monsoon periods, one somewhere in June and another one occurring sometime in November. We'll go out there and we'll prune our trees and make sure that the density of the crown is lightened so as to further lower the risk of anything happening, any incidents happening. But of course, that's it. After that, if should there be any random occurrence of heavy weather, we also go out and check and make sure that nothing has happened to the trees, or try to spot any like broken branches that has been caused by bad weather.
Okay, that's very reassuring. Okay, the next question is, what are the factors in deciding if a tree should be removed? Maybe Jarel, because just now you shared about the defect of a tree, you'd like to take this question.
Yep, I'll take this question. Yeah, so actually, firstly, the most important thing regarding trees is like tree removal is always public safety. So if we spot the defects during VGA and we have assessed that it is not structurally safe, we will remove the tree with regards to public safety. But do be assured that actually tree removal will be the resort. We will remove unless sometimes we do remove non-native tree species, which can potentially inhibit the propagation of native species. And also, one other thing we consider is what is the safe useful life expectancy of the tree, and whether it is better to just remove it and replace with another tree to maintain the greenery of the area. So yeah, ultimately removal is always a last alternative, and our overall aim is to always plant it back and to strengthen the ecology. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jarel. So next question is, how do you choose the tree species to plant along roads? Maybe Abigail, since you haven't taken any questions, you want to take this one.
Yeah, sure. Actually, there are many factors that we consider when we choose a species to plant. Of course, some of the factors include like the site constraints, whether there is enough planting width for a specific species of trees. And then other factors include the heritage of that road. For example, for some areas that are along the coastal region, we will try to choose trees that are coastal and native to Singapore to maintain the original biodiversity of the area. Yeah, so for recent years, we have been a bit more conscious about the type of species that we choose. So instead of choosing exotic species from other countries, we try to choose native species that are originally found in Singapore, so that actually these will help to support the biodiversity that we originally have in the country. Other factors also include like the color, the foliage of the plants as well, to beautify the streetscapes along our roads. Yeah.
So there are really a lot of different decision factors that we need to take into account. Okay, next one, why are shrubs planted along the roadsides or under or in between the full-grown trees? Abigail, maybe you'd like to share about this too.
Can. Yeah, so I think this question is probably referring to the recent nature way plantings that we have along our roadsides. So for those who are not familiar, nature way planting is a new kind of planting palette that we are trying to implement along our roadsides that will mimic the natural layers of the forest. For example, we have the emergent species, the canopy species, the understory species, and the shrub layers. And this will actually help to create habitats for for fauna, such as birds and butterflies to utilize, so that they can actually move from one green node to another. For example, from a nature reserve to a park, they can use all these plants that are naturally fruit-bearing or flower-bearing to move from one point to the other. Yeah, and it also helps to beautify our landscapes as well by adding a lot of color, a lot of foliage for commuters to enjoy when they are moving from place to place. Yeah, another point I would like to share is that in the past you will always see monoculture planting along our roadsides. Monoculture means just a single species of plants being planted along a whole stretch of road, but we have since moved to a new approach where we are introducing more species, and this helps to increase the resilience of the trees. So if one tree is being affected by a disease or a fungus, the rest of the species of trees will not be affected as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Abigail. Yeah, I think we only have time for one more question. So how beneficial are the trees that NParks is planting, even if it goes beyond 1 million trees? Maybe Arthur, do you want to take this question?
Well, planting trees are definitely beneficial, but given Singapore's landscape, we have quite a bit of urban concrete facade. So what we have increasingly, especially due to climate change, is the urban heat island effect. So with planting trees, we aim to lower that effect eventually. And we know that trees also are habitats for wildlife. So with that also, we can promote more biodiversity, especially like just now what Abigail was sharing about with the nature ways, why we are doing multi-tiered planting. And that is to attract wildlife such as butterflies, birds, and bees. And ultimately, trees also sequestrate carbon. So that is what we are aiming to do also. Remember I shared earlier about the City in Nature plan, where we want to build up our carbon sink, yeah, so that we have this climate resilience for our future. So yeah, that is why definitely, if it's more than 1 million, it's definitely beneficial. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's the end of our Q&A session. Once again, thank you to Arthur, Jarel, and Abigail for your sharing, as well as to our audience on Zoom and YouTube for joining us today. So with the 1 Million Trees movement and our City in Nature vision, We hope to involve more people in creating a greener city. You don't have to be a tree doctor to help out with our greening efforts. So check out our website, TreesSG, and connect with us on our NParks social media channels. You may also scan the QR code over here to sign up for our mailing list. A million thanks to everyone, and we hope you have a great day ahead. Thank you.